I like his confidence. I really do. But if past history has told us anything, he's yet to win a national titles. Until he wins one, I don't know if I'm fully sold. Welcome back, everyone. This is Bando's Breakdowns, episode 68. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. This will be the last episode in the month of November, as we are going to be taking a week off for Thanksgiving. There's only going to be a couple shows that are going to be present within the network, those being Forever Power 5 and the Football Forecast. So today, you guys get a little bit of a treat. You guys get an extended episode with 2 interviews to come later on in the show. So stay tuned for those ahead of RAF wrestling in Chicago next Saturday. I was lucky enough to talk to Guida and Chad Mendes, so you won't want to miss those. More interviews regarding RAF to come within the next week or so, but figured I would give you guys that programming note right off the top. That way you guys weren't confused as to why the show is a little bit longer than usual, so I figured I would get that out of the way. A few other things that we need to get out of the way, though. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network, as we are slowly but surely making the steady climb towards 2,000 subscribers. We just hit a little over 1,000 about now, I'd say 8 to 10 weeks ago. I can't exactly remember when, but it's been a steady climb. So if you like what you hear today, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. It would be very much appreciated if you guys did so. We have a watch hours goal, and we're putting out a lot more content, including this show, Forever Power 5, ETB Sports with myself and Nick Morganson, that dropped a couple of days ago now. That's also our last episode in the month of November, as we will also be going dark as well. So just something to bear in mind there. We also have other shows across the network as well, and more shows to come in the very near future, in fact. So stay tuned for all that, wherever you get your podcasts as well. And speaking of wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to me and put your earbuds in wherever you do so: Spotify, Acast, Apple Podcasts, and so much more. Literally any platform you could think of, I'm on there, and it's very accessible to find me wherever it is that you get them. So you can put your earbuds in, add me to your RSS feed, so you'll never miss another episode of Bando's Breakdown. So again, would be very much appreciated if you guys checked me out over on the audio only side as well. That also helps. Download the show, leave a review. It tells me that you like what you're hearing. It tells me that you want more content like this, and it tells me that you're interested in following my work. So that's the most important thing. Would be very much appreciated if you guys did so. Just a quick intro on me, because we haven't done one of these in quite a bit regarding intros. For those of you who have never heard me before, my name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and an ETV Network co-host. Sports journalism-wise, you can find my work over on the sporting news for college football and college basketball coverage. We're going to start to ramp up college basketball coverage a little bit within the next week, but the focus is more so on football right now. Also, you can check out my UFC recaps, deadline oriented, over on Field Level Media after every single UFC event. So in case you may be wondering, yes, I will be covering the afternoon event that is UFC Qatar. So stay tuned for that. That should be a good card. We'll talk about that card later on in the show. And then, of course, you can check out all my other combat sports work over at MMA Knockout on Sports Illustrated. You could also catch some other additional work that I do across some different sports, including WNBA coverage for the Dallas Wings on Sports Illustrated site as well. So I'm keeping myself as busy as I possibly can this fall, and it's been fun so far. Just being able to do this remotely, and then also covering stuff when I can. At the time that this is coming out, yes, you did see me at the Illinois Alabama men's basketball game at the United Center. I just went as a fan for this one. It was the first time I had been a fan at an actual sporting event in quite some time, so it was nice to get a change of pace, hang out with some of my friends, and take in my alma mater playing a really good Alabama team. So if you haven't looked at my Instagram about how that night went, be sure to follow me on Instagram at ZanBando99, as well as on X at ZanBando99 to find out how my night went. All right, that's going to do it, though, for an intro. let's talk about what we're going to be talking about today in Zan's overview. So Zan's overview, it's very, very, very specific this week. A lot of the show is going to be college football based. So fair warning, we had a pretty major head coaching hiring, if you will, in the ACC. So we're going to talk about what I think that means for the landscape of the sport. And of course, I also would be remiss if I didn't mention that a certain Big Ten program is potentially interested in leaving the conference in about a decade or so. We'll talk about that. We will preview a few major college football games within the Big Ten, specifically relating to the area teams. So you will get a preview from me, Northwestern Minnesota and Illinois, Wisconsin. That's Brett Bielema's return trip to Camp Randall Stadium. So it should be very exciting to see how that plays out. And a full disclosure note for those of you who have been following my Illinois football season journey, I will not be at the final two games of the regular season. I had some plans change. So you will not see me at the Wisconsin game this Saturday at Camp Randall, nor will you see me at the home finale, which is also a night game against Northwestern at Memorial Stadium, the first night game in Geese Memorial Stadium history. But based on where the bowl game is, there's a pretty likely probability that you will see me there. I did cover the Citrus Bowl this past year, so we will see where Illinois ends up bowl destination wise as well. So we'll talk about that. We will preview the Bears and the Steelers after recapping their epic win against the Vikings, last second field goal, huge, huge win on the road for the Bears. It truly is a remarkable story. Can the Bears make the playoffs? I'll talk about that. And then, of course, we will also preview the Bears and the Steelers. I will give you a wild stat that will blow you away, which is why I think the Bears have a chance to win the game outright this Sunday at home in Chicago. We will also recap an epic UFC 322. In case you haven't heard by now, we have a new UFC welterweight champion, and we have a defending UFC women's flyweight champion. We'll talk about the card. We'll preview UFC Qatar. It's a good card that's flying under the radar because of the way too early start time, and so much more. So that was a longer intro than what I thought it was going to be. Let's get into the show. Here's the inevitable. James Franklin was hired at Virginia Tech earlier this week to be the new coach beginning next season. Of course, James Franklin was formerly with the Penn State Indy Lions and was fired mid-season after a disastrous collapse after beginning the year 3-0 and failing to win a Big Ten game. Penn State finally won a Big Ten game this past weekend with a win over Michigan State, but that was under interim coach Terry Smith. So let's talk about this. So there's been a lot of mixed reactions to this hiring, a lot of good and a lot of bad. And I'm going to tell you what I think and the reason why I think this is a good hire. This is a good hire because Virginia Tech has not been stable in forever. You could argue the last time Virginia Tech was really stable was when Shane Beamer's dad, Frank, was the head coach. So that's number one. James Franklin has a proven track record of turning fledgling programs around. He did it at Vanderbilt. He did it at Penn State in ways that people thought were unimaginable at the time, given the sanctions that had come down on them, given that Joe Paterno had passed away and several other factors. Within a couple of years, they were in the Big Ten championship and they won it. Now, James Franklin has failed to win a national title, and I completely understand. I think this hire is good for stability. I don't think it's a good long-term hire though, because when it comes down to it, James Franklin does not win in the big spot. A brutal record against AP, top five opponents. Can't win the conference games when they matter, and even though the ACC has maybe easier competition, he still has to compete with the likes of Florida State and North Carolina and Duke and stuff like that. All these powers and Miami as well. And even though Mario Cristobal is not a good coach in the month of November, that doesn't mean that Miami can't beat Virginia Tech during the regular season because it certainly can. So I think James Franklin is going to have to be very careful about who he hires, number one, to join his staff. That's number one. Number two, he's going to have to be extremely careful about what non-conference games he gives Virginia Tech, because to already get out to a rough start in a conference like the ACC where it's so fluid every year, that's not going to be a good look either. And then, of course, taking a look at the optics here. You got to win the games you're supposed to. You have to win the games against the lesser ACC opponents, and Virginia Tech right now is one of those. So can they get out of the cellar dweller in year one, similarly to when Brett Bielema took over Illinois, or when Dan Lanning took over an up and down Oregon football program, or when Sharon Moore had to step in for Jim Harbaugh. Can Franklin be that guy that says, okay, let's take Virginia Tech to the next level? And he's committed to excellence, which is a good thing. But how is that going to translate, considering that Virginia Tech, maybe besides its epic intro, which is what most people show up to those games to see, because it's the most exciting part of the game, because the team itself isn't very good. How is Franklin going to sell to recruits that this program has a chance to be really, really good, and it's had good past history? It just hasn't been able to, put together several seasons in a row of consistent winning. So that's going to be a major question that Franklin is going to have to answer. All right, let's talk about what this fallout could mean. It's not on the banner, but let's talk about what this fallout could mean for Penn State. First off, Penn State letting Franklin walk. People can have their opinions all they want. Um, there's several rumors. Could it be Kalen DeBoer leaving Alabama to go to Penn State? Could it be Brian Kelly? Which that just wouldn't make any sense. I don't know. I don't see the vision there. And I wrote about this for TSN the other day, and it's doing quite well. It's making its way around the college football community. But the outlier here is, why not Pat Fitzgerald? Pat Fitzgerald has, he had a huge, huge controversy that's obviously in the rearview mirror now, settled with Northwestern for an undisclosed amount. So let's just talk about the coaching part for a second here. Fitz obviously made Northwestern a very relevant program for much of the 2000s and 2010s. He's a coach that's known to do more with less. He's a coach that's, a player's coach, a guy that, defends his players to the death, doesn't really have any eye-popping 4-star or 5-star recruits. Northwestern was not a football factory by any means, but it produced some pretty good players. With the NIL resources that Penn State has, and with the brand and the mystique of the program, and I think with more resources, I think he could resurrect his career. I really do. I'm not saying that they would win 10 games in year one, but he would have them competitive. I'll tell you that. Every Penn State game would be a can't miss, because the game would be a close game. So just something to think about there. I do think, though, at the end of the day, the biggest winner in this whole thing is James Franklin. And I'm going to tell you why. James Franklin wins for a couple reasons. Number one, he gets to resume his coaching career. That was a big thing that he wanted to do. Number two, he admitted it on College Game Day. He's like, I thought we had a chance to win a national championship. I'm going to go win a national championship somewhere else now. I like his confidence. I really do. But if past history has told us anything, he's yet to win a national titles. Until he wins one, I don't know if I'm fully sold that he can win a national championship in a place that isn't, fully known for, winning consistently all the time. So he's going to have a slow build there. That's one. Two, and I'll end on this. All he really needs to do is get a couple of guys from the portal, get 2 huge recruits, whatever position he wants, and build a schedule that gives him a chance to compete. It's as simple as that. Year one should be, okay, let's compete. Let's see how many games we can win. If we go 6-6, that's probably good for that program. It probably is. And then maybe by year two or year three, you're looking at, a similar Brett Bielema type of trajectory where you're winning 8-9 games. And then by year four, you're talking like, okay, this is the year they need to go make the playoff, and they need to go at least win a playoff game and show that they can compete amongst the best teams in the nation. So I think it needs to be a slow build. I think 4 to 5 years is a really good plan, and I really do hope he succeeds, because the ACC just needs more comp, man. I mean, you can't have Miami some years Florida State. You can't just have um Miami and Florida State and this year Georgia Tech dominate the ACC. You need more blood than that. And now James Franklin and Bill Belichick, assuming Belichick sticks around, I don't know if he will, but if he does, James Franklin and Bill Belichick in the same conference is tremendously fascinating. So, speaking of conferences, though, there's been a bombshell report by Yahoo Sports within the last several hours. Um, at the time this is being recorded, that Michigan could leave the Big Ten by 2036 if it doesn't agree with the Big Ten's private equity deal. And I mean, I'm just going to say this: I think Michigan being an independent program would be a horrible look for the conference. Because let's think about this: the Big Ten right now in its 18-team iteration has numerous big brands. So let's go through them from a football standpoint. Ohio State's a huge brand. Penn State's a big brand. Michigan's right up there. There's no question about it. And then you have a couple others. I mean, I don't know if you'd consider this a big brand, but there's certainly a name. Nebraska's in there, right? From a football standpoint, but you really have to go back to its days in the Big 12 of when they were really last relevant in this whole conversation, right? So there's that. Then you kind of keep looking down the list. You're like, okay, Illinois is not a big brand, but they're trying to become a program that people are talking about consistently on a national basis. You have Indiana, who came out of nowhere. And then, of course, you have the likes of Wisconsin, which once they're restored, Wisconsin being good is going to be critical. And then, of course, Iowa has always been there. So Michigan leaving the Big Ten, even though it wouldn't be for another decade, would be catastrophic because you would lose the biggest rivalry in the sport. You would lose Ohio State, Michigan. And I don't think the conference would accommodate Michigan playing Ohio State unless Michigan was still in the conference. I don't see it. It seems like the Big Ten is very buttoned up about this conference schedule and this rotational thing that they're doing with all these schools, and how you only play certain teams every year and how you don't play teams one year but you play them the next year. Prime example: Illinois played Michigan State last year, didn't play them this year, and will have to go to East Lansing next year. So it's like weird things like that. So I don't think it would be in Michigan's best interest to leave the conference. I really don't. I really don't, and I just see overall this not being the greatest look in the world. I really don't see it, and I just think overall, I think Michigan needs to be careful. They need to be careful. They need to come up with a solution, and they need to do so fast. That way, it can maintain its mystique in a conference that truly, in my humble opinion, deserves it. It really does. I mean, this is a huge brand that I don't think the conference can afford to lose. They generate them several hundred million and maybe even billions of dollars in revenue a year, most of that coming from the two major sports at the institution. And you lose that, that's tons of money that the conference isn't getting. Then you think about all the promotions and you think about the Big Ten championships that they could potentially play in, the Big Ten men's basketball tournaments they could possibly play in. I mean, yeah, there's so many things that I just think are wrong about this possibility that Michigan needs to do everything it can to stay in the league. So it's as simple as that. All right, let's go over some predictions now. Bando's breakdowns odds before we begin are presented by Novig. Stay tuned for a message later on in the show about Novig to find out more, and that will come right before we go straight into interviews. So something to keep in mind there as well. All right, let's talk about the games now. Northwestern back at Wrigley Field, neutral site game, favored by 3.5 against Minnesota. Northwestern has struggled after winning four in a row. They're trying to avoid an epic collapse to a season that looked very promising just about a month ago. Its most recent loss was to Michigan on a last-second field goal. The Gophers are already bowl eligible, but just fell in a big way on the road against Oregon. Minnesota back on the road again in Chicago to play a Northwestern team desperate for a bowl win. All right, let's talk about this game. So I'm predicting this exactly as I thought it would go. I told you guys weeks ago before the Nebraska game that the collapse was on, and now Northwestern, since that game, has lost 3 in a row. This is a must win for the Northwestern Wildcats. I would argue this is a must win for David Braun's job security, which I don't see a lot of people talking about. David Braun was brought in post Fitzgerald to restore the program and keep it as relevant as possible in a dark time. He did that upon becoming the permanent coach, taking them to a bowl game in 2023 and winning the bowl game against a Utah team that was pretty good, but that was the year that Cam Rising was not 100%. And if he would have played in that game, I think Utah would have beat him. That's beside the point. Last year, you had a completely underwhelming season. You won 4 games. You weren't competitive in most of your games, regardless of win or loss, and you had to go out and get a quarterback. You got Preston Stone from Southern Methodist University, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I think this offensive staff has ruined this kid. I really do. They're not letting him do what he needs to do. This is a very conservative offense. They're not airing the ball out enough. They're not taking advantage of short fields. And I just don't understand how you can go into a game against one of the best high school quarterbacks in recent memory, now a freshman in college, in Bryce Underwood, force 5 turnovers against the future of Michigan football, essentially, and lose the freaking game. Only Northwestern could do that. So first off, you got to control time of possession if you want to beat Minnesota. Kumalafe has to score at least 1 touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns. You got to get Griffin Wilde in space in the middle of tight end. You got to force a couple of huge stops defensively. Okay. And you just need to play smart football. Don't turn the ball over. Run the ball. Force Minnesota into tough situations. Force them to have to pass the ball and force them to throw into tight coverages. Make the game ugly, keep it low scoring, and see what the heck happens. But if Northwestern pulls this again, where it's up by 3 to 7 points in the second half, and they can't put it away, the only person that can be blamed is the head coach. And I'm going to tell you why. Because David Braun, so far this year, has lost games for this football team. I'm just going to be honest with you. He has lost games for this football team. In the USC game, there was no excuse. They couldn't put USC away in the second half. Northwestern had it right where it wanted it. You forced 5 turnovers against Michigan, a team that's potentially bound for the college football playoff. You have them on the ropes. You can knock them out at a neutral site, but it's suddenly a home game. And you lose the game. You forced 5 turnovers. That's not like you forced one and it was a lucky turnover. No, you gave this team fits and you had the lead. You were up by 1 and you had the ball with a minute to go. All you had to do was sit on the ball and or 2 minutes to go, whatever it was. All you had to do was sit on the ball and make sure Michigan doesn't get it back. And what do you guys do? You give him a short field and you let Bryce Underwood do his damn thing. He had his first true game-winning drive of his career. It's inexcusable. With how bad Michigan played, Michigan had no business winning that game, and Northwestern beat itself. Northwestern handed the game to Michigan. They're like, here, you guys take it. You guys go kick the game-winning field goal, and we will talk about it. And I understand that Braun is visibly disappointed in his team, but there were so many ways that they could have prevented this from happening. All they had to do was they needed one more possession. They needed one possession to go right. The whole game, everything was going really well. They were giving Michigan fits. They came back. They took the lead. It literally is the most inexcusable. It's one of the worst Northwestern losses I've seen probably since Southern Illinois when I was in grad school. I mean, that game was terrible. I was there, but this has to be one of the most excruciating losses in recent Northwestern memory. And I see a lot of people saying, oh, great effort. They gave Michigan a good game. Guys, if you guys watch the game, you guys would know who outplayed who. And you guys should know that the better team did not win the game. And the only reason why Michigan won was because they took advantage of Northwestern tactical errors. It's as simple as that. This week, there's no excuses. You're playing a Minnesota team that barely beat Michigan State. You're playing a Minnesota team that was destroyed by Ohio State and destroyed by Oregon. I understand those are two of the elite teams in the country, but it's clear Minnesota can be blown out and has been blown out on several occasions. They were destroyed by Oregon last week. Wasn't even a game. They went out to Autzen Stadium and they got pummeled in the worst way possible. It was a disgusting loss for PJ Fleck. Disgusting. If I'm being real, I don't mean to be this guy. He's a great coach, but holy cow! To me, that when some of these losses, to me, if it was other programs, especially in that other big time conference, the SEC, some of those losses would be fireable offenses. But nevertheless, it's one of the toughest leagues in the country, so he gets a pat on the back. For Minnesota, all they have to do is handle business, man. I mean, this is a game they should go in and win by multiple scores. They are the better football team. It's as simple as that. PJ Fleck is a better coach than David Braun is. It doesn't matter that the game is at Wrigley Field. It really doesn't. The game could be in Evanston, and I think personally this line is completely wrong. I think Minnesota is the better football team, and I don't even think it's remotely a question. I'm actually amazed that Northwestern is favored here. I really am. And not to mention, this is Northwestern's final home game, but hilariously enough, they're ending the season with 3 games in the state of Illinois. That doesn't usually happen. So, I mean, this is a rare opportunity for not only Northwestern to uh to control this newfound home field advantage. It's also a chance for Northwestern to validate itself and go to a bowl game, which is what should be the goal for a team like this. So my pick in this game is Minnesota is going to cover the number at the very least. They can win the game outright, but this Northwestern team to me is too suspect. You can't trust them in the fourth quarter, and penalties have killed this team. Offensive ineptitude has killed this team, and just bad coaching. Bad coaching. And I think the same thing is going to be true here. Minnesota is a disciplined football team. They don't make a lot of mistakes. And when they don't turn the ball over, they are a good football team. So it can either go one of two ways. Minnesota could get humiliated in a really ugly loss to a very okay Northwestern team, or Minnesota could go in there and say, hey, look, we got humbled against Oregon. We're playing a Minnesota team we know we can beat. Or excuse me, we're playing a Northwestern team we know we can beat. Let's go out and win the game. So that's my rant on this game. Big Ten Network, noon Eastern, Wrigley Field. Don't miss it. Later on that night, Big Ten Network has my number 21, University of Illinois Fighting Illini, recently ranked in the newest edition of the college football playoff rankings in the unofficial Brett Bowl, taking on Brett Bielema's former school and one of the worst programs in America to date, the Wisconsin Badgers. All right, let's get into this game here. Illinois, a touchdown and a hook favorite. This line has moved all week. It could even move some more by the time the episode comes out. But I love Illinois in this game. And I'm not just saying that because of my ties to the school or anything. This is a game, Illinois, you got to hammer the 7.5 here. I mean, it's simple. You got Luke Altmaier, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the Big Ten. You have a defense that, since the Washington game, has played better, has only given up, I think it's now, 19 points in the last 2 games. So the defense is playing a lot better as of late. And you also have a rushing attack that, when healthy, is pretty damn awesome. And you have a quarterback where, as long as he's healthy, you have a chance to win every game. Again, as I just alluded to a second ago, Luke Altmaier, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the nation, does not really turn the ball over at all. And this is a game where Illinois just needs to control the trenches, make whoever Wisconsin's quarterback is uncomfortable. It'll probably end up being a true freshman or something like that. And at the end of the day, they just need to hold Wisconsin, have long drives, and force them to not score at all. And Illinois should win this game by however much it wants. The over under, I think, is really low. I think the over under could hit, but I really like Illinois in this game because Illinois knows how much it has in front of them. They're number 21 right now, or it's number 21 right now. More than likely, it won't make the CFP, but of course, Brett is holding out hope that a bunch of these teams above them are going to lose over the next 2 weeks. So at the end of the day, Illinois controls its own destiny for 9-3. It controls its own destiny for a good bowl game. It's not overlooking this Wisconsin team, and Bielema knows what the narrative is going into the game, knowing that it's his current team against his former institution that he coached at for a long time. But his goal is just to go in there, win the game, take care of business, and come home to hopefully a star-studded Geese Memorial Stadium for the final regular season game where Illinois has a chance to pad a very good home record. So give me the Illini minus the 7.5. All right. The Bears defeated the Vikings this past Sunday in an epic thriller, game-winning field goal in the closing seconds. Duvernay with a really nice return to set up the winning field goal as well. I mean, I go, what can I say? It's 2025. It's been 30, wait. 40 years, my bad, 40 years since the Bears last won the Super Bowl. And every 20 or so years, the Bears make a deep playoff run that you least expect. So, what this win tells me is the Bears can compete in the NFC North. The Bears beat a better football team this past Sunday. And it shows that the Bears are gearing up for a loaded December where they will have to play the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers in that span. They also get the Cleveland Browns. They get San Francisco. They get the Eagles on Black Friday. This was a game the Bears needed to have momentum going into the back half of November where they could feel like, yeah, we can compete with the best in the NFL. And Minnesota is not one of the best in the NFL, but this is a divisional game where you take care of the games you're supposed to win. The Bears rallied to win this one again. And it's not like they're getting lucky. They're just clutch, man. Caleb Williams is playing like a hero himself, and he's really showing out in the fourth quarter. But the thing is, and this is what a lot of people have been alluding to, he's got to play a complete football game, and maybe this is the week against Pittsburgh where he does just that. All right, let's talk about it now. The Bears and the Steelers. Pittsburgh comes to Chicago, first time in a very long time. I think I was at the last game between these two teams in Chicago in 2017, if I remember correctly. But nonetheless, Pittsburgh 1-12 all time against the Bears in Chicago. Last time the Steelers won a game in Chicago was the mid 90s. Or in the last time the last time the Steelers won a game in Chicago was the mid 90s. I think the Bears win this game. I just think Pittsburgh is too they're too fragile. Aaron Rodgers is old. If he's not 100% healthy, they don't look the same. And defensively, they just give too many question marks that tell me that if they don't run the ball and make drives miserable for the defense on the side of Chicago there, I don't I think it's going to be a long day for Pittsburgh, and I think the weather is also going to help. It's going to be colder at Soldier Field this weekend, and I think it's one of those games that the Bears can win, should win, and gives the Bears tons of momentum going into a big back half of November stretch here, where the Bears can't afford to lose again, just to keep the momentum alive. So give me the Bears to win the game against Pittsburgh and keep their streak alive rather against a team that will be in the thick of the AFC playoff picture by season's end. All right, let's talk about some UFC now as we get to the back half of the show here. Recapping UFC 322. We went over this briefly on Zain Zinger Part 2. Let's talk about this a little bit more. The newly minted pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, Islam Makhachev, is the new UFC welterweight champion of the world. and a huge, huge, huge win over Jack Della Maddalena by decision, sweeping the scorecards there. Makachev is now tied with Anderson Silva for the longest active winning streak in UFC history. Silva won 16 in a row from '06 to 13. Makachev is doing the identical, except this time it's taken him a decade to do so, as opposed to Silva, where he did that in under a decade. I think it's just a different era at that point. But a big win for Makachev, huge loss for JDM. He hadn't lost since 2016. But overall, what this means is Islam Makhachev is in superstar territory if I've ever seen it, man. I mean, he is someone of just complete humbleness, character, domination wherever the fight goes. Just one of those guys that you can't pick against. You simply can't pick against him, because if you do, you're going to get burned. And that's what a lot of people did. A lot of people fell for the JDM hype. And it's not that he's not a bad fighter, but I'm just going to say this: picking against Islam Makhachev is like picking against Tom Brady, picking against, Anderson Silva in his prime, picking against John Jones in his true prime. Like, you just don't. What some of these newer MMA consumers just don't understand is these guys are champions for a reason. These guys have been dominant for years for a reason. And until they lose, you can't pick against him. And Makachev was in that exact scenario where there was no way he was going to lose that fight, because he had bulked up to welterweight for a purpose. It was always his dream to win the welterweight title, and he did exactly that against a guy who, let's be real, only burst onto the scene to the UFC audience a couple of years ago. He had such a small sample size, you can make the argument that he shouldn't have been the champion as early as he was. And this isn't to discount him, but I truly think, given his resume, he was fast tracked, man. I mean, and I personally think he really was. And he had not fought the level of competition that Makhachev had before Makhachev moved up to 170 pounds. So I think this win was an obvious one when it's expected. I think every favorite on the card, except for two or something, got beat. So that made it a good night for me on predictions. I went 10-4. Jack Gold, I'm pretty sure, went 8-6 on the card. He got a few big ones incorrect. And I think I only lost one on the main card. No, I think I lost two. I lost the Michael Morales fight, and I also lost the Leon Edwards fight against Carlos Prates. I took Edwards and Brady to win both of those. So I went 3-2 on the main card, but did really stellar on the prelims, only losing two prelim fights. The two prelim fights I lost were Malcolm Wellmaker. He lost to Ewing, and I also lost the Angela Hill Fatima Klein fight. So we did really well on this card after just some rough weeks in October and November, especially that 6-6-1 UFC 321 card. Let's see if we can keep the momentum going, though, with UFC Qatar. So let's talk about UFC Qatar. It's the last UFC event in the month of November before it takes Thanksgiving off. So let's hope this card is a success. It's a big card. It's 14 fights, so another 14 fight batch for the second consecutive week in a row. Main event of the evening is a huge win at lightweight. Arman Tarzukian versus Dan Hooker. I think if Tarzukian wins this one, they'll have to rebook the Islam fight because there's nobody left for Tarzukian to fight after this. So let's see what the UFC decides to do here. Let's take a look at the main event, though. All right, here we go. Arman Tarzukian, number 3 UFC lightweight according to Tapology, against Dan Hooker, who is sitting at number 13 in the division. In Tarzukian's last 5 fights, he is 4-1. In Hooker's last 5 fights, he is 3-2. Let's take a look at where the rod of Tarzukian is 29 years old, out of Russia. Hooker's on the older side and probably has only a few good years left in the sport. From Auckland, New Zealand, he's a plus 310 underdog, which is a pretty sizable underdog, if you ask me. This according to Tapology. I think Novig has similar odds as well. But I really like Tarzukian in this fight. I just think he's more well-rounded. I think he's fought the better competition as of late, and I think he's angry that he never got his true shot at Makhachev to try to win the lightweight title. So he's trying to do it now when Ilya Taporti is the champion. And in order to do so, he needs to beat Dan Hooker. I think he does. I think he does it late, though. I think he does it via third or fourth round TKO. And I think he does it in dominant fashion using his wrestling and just overall his kickboxing ability and keeping Dan Hooker on the outside, because Dan Hooker on the outside is susceptible to getting hit a lot. Hence the Dustin Poirier fight at the Apex all the way back in 2020. So I really like Tarzukian in the main event. In the co-main event, we got Bilal Muhammad, former UFC welterweight champion, taking on Ian Machado Gary. That is also a huge fight in the welterweight division, as the loser of this fight is more than likely out of title contention. Muhammad 24-4. Ian Machado Gary is at 16-1. And this kind of sucks because Gary fought Shavkat and he lost to Shavkat. Shavkat's still injured. But the good news for Gary is he comes into this fight winning 4 out of his last 5. So is Muhammad. So somebody's momentum is going to be shot here. I like Muhammad in this fight, and the reason why is not because he's from Chicago. It's simply because experience is experience. Machado Gary just has not had enough experience against former champions for me to justify picking him. And I just think Muhammad is on a mission to get his title back, and he knows how much stress he's under just from all of his people and all the people who support him. He's essentially fighting at home as a fellow Palestinian. So or not at home, but his culture, if you will, is going to show out in full force. So I really like Muhammad in this spot. I think the only way Ian Gary wins is if he knocks him out. But if he can't avoid the takedown, I think it's going to be a long fight. So give me Muhammad. My full card predictions will be up early Saturday morning, maybe even Friday night, given the early start. And speaking of the early start, let's talk about that. Start time of the card is 10 a.m. Eastern. You can catch the thing on ESPN Plus. The main card follows it right after. I'm pretty sure that's at 1 p.m. Eastern or noon. I can't exactly remember. Let me double check and give you guys the correct time for that, as I don't want to assume things. We got it right here. Hang on. And it's the first time ever the UFC is coming to Qatar. They were supposed to in May, and it did not happen. 2 p.m. Central, sorry, I always did that wrong. Noon Central, 1 Eastern for the main card there. So that is UFC Qatar in a nutshell there as well. All right, let's wrap up the show here before we get to interviews. One thing I saw, Dillon Danis had a brawl at UFC 322. It was him and a bunch of guys from Team Makachev. Just a bad look overall. Regardless of who threw the first punch, this is as ugly of a look as you can get. Dillon Danis is not in the right headspace. I think he was there to cause attention. I think he was there because he has pent up emotions from 8 years ago, and I think he didn't know how to let them out in the proper way. And I think the UFC kicking him out and banning him was more than likely the right thing, regardless of who started it. I think Dillon Danis is in the wrong. If he really didn't start it, he shouldn't have engaged. It's as simple as that. And I think Dillon Danis is going to get the majority of the blame for this, and I think he deserved his lifetime ban from attending UFC events. All right, Zain Zinger, it's official, December 19th, Kaseya Center, Miami, Florida, on Netflix. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. This is a circus, man. A complete circus. I got to give credit to Jake for taking the fight, because Anthony Joshua is one of the scariest heavyweights in the world. But this is a fight Joshua's gonna win, guys. Let's be real. The weight advantage is gonna be ridiculous. The power difference is dumbfounding. And really, the only way Jake Paul is gonna win this fight is if he circles, jab, right hook, circle again, and tire out Joshua. Because if he lets Joshua just sit there and he gets Paul on the outside and picks him apart, it is going to be one of the ugliest looks in recent boxing memory that we have ever seen. So give me Anthony Joshua as my way too early pick for December 19th, and I'll probably end up sticking to it as we get closer to the fight. No errors this week, so it was a fun show. Really enjoyed doing this one with you guys. And that means it's time for a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, We will get you guys both interviews with Clay Guida and Chad Mendes. They will be competing at RAF 03 in Chicago against two completely different opponents. Of course, Michael Chandler headlines against Chad Mendes, and Clay Guida is competing against one of the young best wrestlers in the world. So you won't want to is that um, as well. And I'm not revealing who it is because I think it's a name that's going to surprise you guys. So until a little bit, I guess, enjoy our word from our sponsors, and then we will throw it right to the interviews, and then we will come right back. So have a good one.
Hey fans, Novig is here to change the way you play. Available in 35 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and New York, Novig is America's #1 sports prediction market, and it's 10 times more profitable than traditional sports books because there's no house edge. Instead, you're betting directly against other sports fans just like yourself. Novig is also the only free exchange, which means you keep every dollar you win. Whether you're putting plays down on the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, college sports, or even UFC and tennis, Novig gives you the power to pick the best odds, or better yet, set your own. Sign up today with the code ETB Network, and you'll get 1,000 Novig coins plus $5 in Novig cash, and special bonus offers like spending $5 and getting $50 back. Novig, where fans play smarter. You must be 21 years or older to play. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Just wanted to give a quick timeout in the middle of the show to remind you guys that Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback. I teased it a little bit earlier that there was an announcement coming, and sure enough, without further ado, here we go. Presented by Playback, watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, rubbing your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And with that, we can get back to the show. Welcome back. This is Bando's Breakdowns exclusive, and I'm happy to be joined today by Chad Mendes. Chad, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, where we get started and everything, can you just kind of, if we talk about just kind of how this RAF opportunity came about, you're obviously going to be competing against Michael Chandler in the main event, so I'm just kind of curious how that sort of played out before we really can get started and take a bit of a deeper dive.
Yeah, so my buddy Clay Guida obviously is a diehard wrestler. I started wrestling at the age of 5 all the way up through college, and that was always my style as a fighter also. And Guida is a good buddy of mine, and I know he's good with the guys that started this whole operation, and hit me up and was like, "Hey, dude, you ever think about competing in wrestling again?" And I'm like, "Well, it's probably been close to 20 years since I've put wrestling shoes on and competed in freestyle, but yeah, I'm open to the opportunity. It's something that got me where I'm at right now, and I've always loved the sport, and it's built me into the person that I am today. And if there's an opportunity to get back in there and compete, especially against a guy like Mike Chandler, I'm in, man. So just kind of talked to the guys, and we squared it all out and set it up, and here we are.
Yeah, and speaking of Chandler, just as an opponent, kind of moving right along, I was able to speak to him previously also leading up to this against you, and he had immense respect for your wrestling background as well. He even told me like a personal story about how long he's been following your career and stuff like that. So can you just kind of talk a little bit more about like the challenges potentially that he could present to you come the night of the match, and just kind of what he brings to the table that people should be excited about?
Yeah, Mike's a buddy of mine. I've known him for a really long time. In fact, me and him, I'm trying to think of what fight it was, but he actually was there and came in and helped me cut weight one of the last days of that camp right there at the event, and helped me drill. We wrestled and just went over some stuff. And, me and him have been in contact and buddies for a while. And I own a hunting and fishing guide service, and I know Mike is a big outdoorsman and loves both of those. So it's something we've talked about, is getting him out and doing some of the hunting trips or fishing trips with me. So as soon as his fight schedule kind of slows down, that's what's in the queue. But
Nice. Very cool.
there's a few things that, Mikey is very good at. He is a mental giant. The guy, believes in himself, is very intelligent, and, knows what to do when the heat of the moment arises. And, we've seen that in his fights. Also, the guy is a scrapper, both on the wrestling mat and in the cage. The guy just has no quit in him. He'll go till he's dead, or they end the fight. And that's always something that's tough to deal with, whether it's wrestling, fighting, or anything, So, I mean, for me, this is something I'm excited to get in there and do, not only because it's wrestling and I love the sport, but now I get to get in there and compete against one of my buddies, and we don't have to punch each other in the face. So that's probably
for sure. And I'm sure the good news for you is that you guys will still be friends after, which is what ultimately matters at the end of the day, right? So,
absolutely, man. Yeah, win or lose, I'm just excited to get in there and compete, man. And I love what these guys are doing. Real American Freestyle, this is a new organization. They're bringing in guys from all over the fight world that have been big names in the wrestling community growing up, and then guys that are still really big in the wrestling community, still competing and making those really cool matchups that people want to see. I absolutely love what this stands for, and I hope this takes off. And if there's anything I can do to help this grow, whether that's compete in it, help push it on social media or whatever, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off of what you just said, like, what was the biggest thing that RAF pitched to you that made you say, like, yeah, I'm in, and I'll totally do this? Because I think this is an organization that either people that are in the know either know about it, or people that are maybe hearing about it for the first time because you and Michael are headlining it. So kind of just a little bit more specifically, how was this pitched to you overall? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think it's basically what I just said. It's a new organization, and they are trying to spotlight the sport of wrestling, which, up until the UFC wrestling was relatively unknown. I feel like you have a lot of guys that have won UFC titles that are big wrestling background fighters, and that
Right.
kind of put the sport on the map. And I think with the UFC growing and getting as big as it is now and continuing to grow, I think it's still shining light on the sport. But having an organization like this that is bringing in a lot of those top talent guys that are in the fight game, and then, like I said, that are big talent in the wrestling world and making really cool matchups. I mean, it's something that it's exciting. People want to watch it, and all that's doing is helping grow the sport of wrestling, which then slingshots those guys into mixed martial arts if they choose to go that route, which now helps them build a bigger platform and get paid more, and ultimately just basically do what we all do as prize fighters, try to get paid.
For sure, and just kind of moving off of that, because that's a perfect segue into my next question. Do you plan for this match with if Chandler to be a one-off, or if they potentially called you again in a couple months or so, based on how you felt after for this one? Would you be interested in potentially doing this a little bit more consistently?
Oh, absolutely. Obviously, I own a couple businesses, and I've talked to the guys about this. Ultimately, that comes first and foremost because that's how I make my money. But if I can squeeze these in the schedule and get enough training in to do these, absolutely, I'd love to do multiple if possible. So yeah, we're just kind of playing it by ear and just seeing when these events kind of play out with my schedule and what work looks like. But other than that, heck yeah, I'm in.
And I'm also just kind of curious too, as someone who's like really just interested in just different types of matchups. If it was up to you, and if you were to have like an ideal already of stem, like, are there any other names that you would potentially be interested in competing against outside of just Chandler himself?
Man, I feel like anybody in that basically limelight that Chandler's in, any of the big UFC names, if anybody wants to get in there, that's ultimately what I would like to do. I'll tell you what, wrestling these guys that are still actively wrestling and competing in wrestling, that shit is next level. Like, I'm not, obviously I was a top level wrestler back in the day when I was doing it daily and competing.
Right, of course.
Compete against a guy that's still actively competing, it's night and day different. So for me, I would actually get way more pleasure out of just competing against big names, big UFC guys that are either actively fighting or have retired like I have, and just basically get in there and making these big power matchups and playing it out that way. That's what I would like to do. But I mean, ultimately, like I said, I'm here to help this organization grow and just have some fun doing it. So whoever really they think they want me to match up with, I'm open to it, but we'll see.
For sure, and just kind of speaking on just you were alluding to potentially only competing against big UFC names, either guys who are currently active or who are retired like yourself. I'm just sort of curious too, reflecting upon your MMA career, which obviously spanned decade plus, of course. Can you just kind of elaborate a little bit on what you feel out of all of your accomplishments that you were able to create for yourself? Which one is the one that you're the most proud of, and why?
As far as sports goes,
Arj, it's as far as like your MMA career overall.
man, I think. Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, obviously, there's a few handful of fights that I absolutely love and look back on my career. One of them being one of my good buddies, Clay Guida. That was a fight that I feel like put me into that next stage of my career.
Oh, it
Guida was
definitely did.
really well known in the world, was a legend, Hall of Famer, coming down from 55s to 45s.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it was, I would say, probably the biggest, you know, household name that I had fought. He had never been knocked out. This was a fight that if I won, if I won in a spectacular fashion, probably was going to slingshot me into that number one contender spot or into a title shot. And so getting out there and getting the knockout was obviously, it was bittersweet because he's a good buddy of mine. That always sucked, but it was that fight that kind of took my career, I feel like, into that next step. So that was one. Another one was the Ricardo Lamas knockout, having a ton of friends and family members there. Same thing with the Miles Jury fight, tons of family and friends there. Obviously we strive to get in there and get that really quick knockout like that. Doesn't always happen, but you train your butt off through an entire camp, you visualize it. And when you get out there and take no damage, get the win real quick and get paid and get out and get to go have fun with your friends and family. To me, that was the top of the top.
Or I think that all that stuff was really well said, and especially that Guida fight. I do remember in that particular, or that was one of those ones where a lot of people were thinking, oh, who's going to knock off Chapman? And everybody going in that fight thought that Guida was going to be her toughest test, and of course we all know what happened there. And he obviously went on to fight Aldo and all of the other major names you fought as well. So it's cool that you look back on those years fondly, and I think that that's really awesome.
Yeah, man, it was a good time. I had a fun career. It was a good time jumping into that Team Alpha Male world right out of college, and so many good memories and tough lessons learned in the gym with those animals. But man, it definitely shaped me into the human I am today, raising a family and running multiple businesses and just trying to live my dream. So yeah, man, I wouldn't have it any other way, honestly.
Oh, for sure, and just kind of speaking of just given the level of opposition that you fought, having shared the octagon with Conor McGregor about a little bit over a decade ago or so, if the McGregor Chandler fight were to actually happen, do you have any parting words of advice for Michael Chandler or anything like that?
I think, I think Mike already knows this, but push the pace. I mean, stay in his face, push the pace. Letting Connor dictate the range is probably the worst thing that anybody can do. We know Connor will gas out eventually. We've seen it in many fights when guys that are in his face nonstop, pushing the pace. I mean, it happens. It's tough to do. It's tough to deal with somebody that's in your face for 5-minute rounds. So, man, I think Mikey already knows that. And man, I'm really hoping that fight happens for two reasons. Obviously, that's a huge opportunity for the Chandler family, but also just for the legacy and the name of that fight. So hopefully it does, man. I don't know if it ever will, but I'm praying it does.
Yeah, I think me, and tons of other people in the MMA community are still salivating over that fight, and maybe everybody's wishes will be granted. Who knows?
Who knows? Fingers crossed.
Yeah, just kind of moving ahead towards looking closer into fight week. Are you looking forward to exploring Chicago? And have you ever been to Chicago before?
I have been to Chicago, and my family's actually coming out with me, so I'm not sure what the schedule is going to look like quite yet, but we're probably going to spend Thanksgiving out there, and I know there's a couple cool things to check out for the kids, a big aquarium and stuff like that. So
Oh yeah.
hopefully we get some downtime. I'd like to go check that out with the kids. So
Yeah, there's tons to do as someone who's 40 minutes outside of the city. I can attest that there's never a boring day in Chicago, and I'm sure that regardless of what you guys choose to do, you guys are going to have an awesome time.
Nice. I'm excited for it.
For sure. And final question for me, and I'll get you out of here on this. Is there anything else you would like to plug, either social media wise, either regarding your match with Chandler, or just anything you have personally you have coming up regarding social media? I will let you have the floor for the final question.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've, just been vlogging and filming a bunch of my hunting and fishing trips over the last 9 years. So if anyone's interested in seeing how those hunts and fishing trips play out, you can check me out. I have a YouTube channel. Obviously follow me on Instagram. It's just at Chad Mendes. Facebook, same thing. But yeah, follow along on my journey and my YouTube stuff. I do some training stuff, cooking stuff, a lot of hunting and fishing trips. And then if anybody ever wants to come hunt and fish with me, finsandfeathers.com. Fins and feathers, both spelt with Z's, not S's. Check that out. We got some really cool opportunities for people that have never hunted, never fished before. I love teaching those types of people to come out and basically learn to live off the land and appreciate what Mother Nature has given us as far as food, and doing it yourself. So all the way up to people that have hunted their whole lives. We also take those types of people. So if you guys are interested, check it out.
That's awesome. How many more hunting and fishing trips do you have on the docket for 2025 and I guess early 2026 as well that you can kind of just briefly talk about? I'm curious.
I got two left on
myself.
the season. I got Texas whitetail. I'm going to be filming out there mid-December, and then after Christmas, I drew a late season rifle elk tag in Arizona, so I'll be heading out there that first week of January or so. Hopefully, can connect. I got my butt kicked on that hunt last year, so need some redemption. But other than that, that's it for my 25 season. And then basically trade show season starts January, February, and just going to be plugging the hunting and fishing guide service, hanging out at a lot of those hunt expos, and then back into the spring.
Cool. And then what what, if anything, is planned for the spring after trade show season is over?
That's when our San Diego tuna trips start. We go out of San Diego for 3 days each trip. We got 3 trips, one in May, June, and July. And then from there, basically jumps right into the big game hunting season. So basically August through January, we're hunting big game animals all over the world.
That's awesome. It seems like you're keeping yourself busy both personally and professionally, and that's really great to hear. Chad, thank you so much for your time. Good luck on the 29th. I will be there, so I'm looking forward to seeing you compete, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, man. I appreciate
it. Thanks, sir. You too. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Hey, welcome back. This is Bando's Breakdowns exclusive. I'm happy to be joined by Clay Guida today as he will be competing in RAF next Saturday night from the Wintrust Arena in Chicago. Clay, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, Zain. Thanks for having me on the show, man. It's always cool to see a little bro of mine that I've known since he was, I think, 7 years old. I think I've known you since.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, to see you growing and doing things in the sports and media world is incredible. And now you have your own show at Bando's Breakdown. So it's a pleasure to be on with you, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And just as a heads up to, not only is this going to be not only is this going to be in video form, it's going to be in written form on Sports Illustrated. So I'll be sure to send this to you after it's all completed for sure.
Awesome. Well, I've always wanted to be on Sports Illustrated, so this might be one of the first times even throughout our long career in the UFC. I think I was only in there a couple of times, so it's an honor, buddy. Thank you for making this possible.
Oh, not a problem. Always happy to do it. So I guess to kind of just start off, can you just kind of tell me a little bit more about RAF and just kind of how this opportunity came about, just given that you've been so busy as of late?
Well, RAF started out as just a concept by the other great big man upstairs himself, Hulk Hogan, and our brother Israel Martinez teamed up with Chad Bronstein and Eric Bischoff because they wanted to create a real professional wrestling platform, where for international wrestling, where, guys, can go out there, perform their set of skills on the big mat and get compensated for it. So this came to fruition. It was an idea probably about just a little over a year ago. And then they had their first event in August at RAF 01 in Cleveland, which is one of the meccas of wrestling. And there were some huge names on there. You had, Kyle Dake, Bo Nickel, Lance Palmer, hometown hero, Real Woods, Darian Caldwell. The list goes on and on. It was just an awesome, awesome kickoff to RAF. And the second one was a huge success in Penn State. They got a big deal from Fox Nation,
Oh
and
yeah,
yep, and now
absolutely.
now they're bringing RAF 03 back to our hometown of Chicago, and they invited me to be on the card, and I jumped at the opportunity. I've always wanted to strap back on the wrestling shoes. Everyone knows, you know, one of our quotes is "Wrestling is life, man," and to be
Absolutely.
able to go ahead and be able to wrestle back in town, the hometown of Chicago, where we grew up in the suburbs, and do one of my first love was wrestling as a young age into college, and I got into mixed martial arts after that. So yeah, now we get to compete next Saturday night, November 29th at the Wintrust Arena for RAF 03.
Yeah, I'm looking very forward to it. When was the last time that you were to guess that you put on wrestling shoes in a formal setting like the one you're about to walk into next week? I'm sure it's been a hot minute for you, right?
That is a great question, man. So I actually did compete a couple years ago. I had fought at a fight night in Vegas, and it happened to be the same week of the U.S. Open in Vegas. So I wrestled freestyle for my first time. But then going way back, I want to say it was 2002 or 2003 was the last time I put the
Okay.
wrestling shoes on. 03, I believe.
Yeah, it definitely is a long time, and it's really, really cool that you'll get to experience it. I'm just sort of curious too. What was the biggest sales pitch or selling point that RAF gave you that made you say, "Oh yeah, this is no brainer," and I'm totally doing this.
Oh man, just the fact that we get to do what we love, to go back and go back to our roots. This is what got us into mixed martial arts. If it wasn't for wrestling, I wouldn't be doing this interview right now. I wouldn't be have competed in wrestling competing in MMA for as long as I did. So I jumped at the opportunity. RAF gave me the opportunity, offered it to me. I said, "Sign here, let's roll."
It's awesome. So, sort of kind of speaking of that and sort of piggybacking off that, I don't really think we've fully heard from you publicly since the end of your UFC stint. So, how has your post UFC life been treating you, and just kind of what's been keeping you busy besides all your favorite leisurely activities you like to do? I know I saw you in Chicago in August for the DDP Shemaya fight, but outside of that, just how have you been overall, and how has your post UFC life been?
Yeah, post UFC life has been great, Zan. I appreciate you asking, bud. I'm probably busier now, that I'm not employed by the UFC than I was when I was with them. It's kind of crazy. We're traveling around, all the time. I started a fishing entertainment, a VIP fishing entertainment guide service called Gills and Thrills with Guida back in 2019. So, as people know, we take clients fishing all over the country for big trophy species, trophy fish from tarpon to sharks to Goliath grouper to tuna, wahoo, kingfish, mahi, you name it, we've caught them. We have a pro staff of athletes, from Randy Couture to Tito Ortiz, Chad Mendes, Uriah Faber, Eddie Alvarez, Lance Palmer. We work with, so they come out and they go fishing with us on the boat, on the water. Um, we work with a couple of some really, really awesome bands, just to name a few: Metallica, Zach Brown Band, Slightly Stupid, a bunch of reggae rock bands. And yeah, we get to do, kind of in-depth, all access, backstage, experience. We take our clients fishing, then we take them to a UFC event. We take them, to the weigh-ins, take them to the dinners, the after parties, take them to the fights after the, I'm sorry, taking the fights and taking the after parties. So we do a lot of cool stuff behind the scenes, they might not have access to with your regular run-of-the-mill guide service. We go to these live concerts, like I had mentioned before with Metallica, Zach Brown. Sometimes we'll get a little meet and greet, go check out the show, go to professional sporting events, Cubs games, Bears games, whatever sport our clients want to do. We get them premium tickets to those events. And yeah, we really give them the all access experience, which they might not have otherwise. So it's been a lot of fun. Met a lot of amazing people, great clients, family that have turned into family friends, and yeah, we're very blessed to do what we love.
Yeah, and for anyone who wants to get involved with your fishing service, what can they do? Because Chad Mendes only had very, very good things to say, so it's cool that you and several other former fighters have been able to team up to do this. What's the easiest way for people to get involved for those who maybe are just hearing about the service for the very first time?
You can check us out on our website, gillsandthrillswithguida.com. It's with two Z's, Gilz and thrills with the Z as well. You check out our website, check out our social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Facebook as well. And also, I've been more involved in the fishing world. Excuse me. I help run a fishing lure company called G-Rat Baits, and we are essentially a freshwater fishing lure company. We have, for largemouth bass, big striper, muskie, trout, you name it. People have been catching all sorts of, saltwater fish as well. Giant snook. You guys have seen me putting some pretty cool videos together on our social media platforms. So G-Rat Baits is really growing. We got some really big news coming up in 2026 with G-Rat Baits, with Bassmaster Classic. So things are going great in the outdoors world. I'm learning to hunt a little bit. So after my big wrestling match, I get to go hunt with one of my good friends, Mikey. Get to go shoot my first buck first week of December. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've never done that. So really just getting more into the outdoors world, things I didn't do a whole lot while I was training, in MMA for fights because, we were constantly, training, trying to be the best in the world. So now I have those, those opportunities to go do those things I've always wanted to try out when I was younger.
And where will that fishing trip in December take place, Clay? Where are you
Uh,
going for that?
Oh, so check it out. We're going hunting in December up in Pennsylvania. Yeah, just outside of
Oh,
Pittsburgh. But yeah, people can look at our 2026 schedule for Gills and Thrills with Guida is going to be dropping here probably before New Year's. And you guys can see we're going to have maybe 8 to 10 trips on our website. Anywhere we do 4 or 5 staple trips in Florida. We do a couple of them out of North Captiva Island. It's a beautiful tropical island. We have
oh
these
yeah,
beautiful vacation rentals.
it's my favorite place in the world.
You've
I
been
know
there
where it is.
before.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh
Yep.
yeah. Oh
Yep. For
yeah.
people that don't know, it's just a very desolate island, and you can only get there obviously by boat. There's no vehicles allowed on there except golf carts. It's a golf cart community island, beautiful pools. The North Captiva Island Club is amazing. Um, yeah, we do some trips. January 31st, actually, we have a huge one. 30th, 31st, we have the Predator, the man, the myth, the legend, Don Fry is going to be our pro staffer guest coming out to fish with us in Sacramento. So we're going fishing
Unreal. That's
with Don
awesome.
Fry. Yep, and then we're gonna go see the man, the myth, the legend, the general. Uriah Faber is going to be getting back into the octagon, back into the cage on the other side. He's going to be doing a grappling match. Against they just announced it. Rob, I cannot remember his name, but you can go check it out at A1 Combat. So we're gonna go see Uriah Faber's fighter organization called A1 Combat, which is on UFC Fight Pass. We're gonna go watch those fights with our clients. Then we're gonna watch Uriah Faber get in there and do a grappling event, and then the following night, we're going to take our clients to a PBR, professional bull riding at the Golden One Arena. It's going to be a blast. We've done that before. This will be our 4th year going to the PBR. And you talk about pure entertainment. Man, it is next level. These riders, a lot of them are Brazilian bull riders, littler guys, like us, almost like jockeys on, on a horse too. These guys are little and they go buck wild out there. It's pretty incredible. They put us in the pits. Sometimes they'll put us like in a circular cage out there in the middle that's protected where the bulls will come right up. We have a camera crew set up right in there, and the bull will come right up to the cage. It's about as intense as it gets. So yeah, that's our first trip of 2026 with Don Fry. So check that one out. And then we have a whole list. We're going to Costa Rica. So we're taking Gills and Thrills International. Our first international trip will be, I would believe, April 17th to 25th. We're going to be fishing for a few days in Costa Rica, one of the fishing capitals of the world for billfish, for roosterfish. Yeah, for tuna, it's going to be incredible. We get to stay at Los Sueños, which is a world-renowned uh, fishing resort. Michael Jordan goes there. He's a huge competitive fisherman, so I'm sorry, he's fished there before. Donald Trump Jr. has fished there before. They stay at this beautiful resort called Los Sueños. It's right on the water, um, and that's just to name a few of the staple trips. And I'm just excited that Gills and Thrills gets to go international and show a great time to our clients.
That's awesome, and it's really cool that been staying busy with that. Kind of transitioning away from it though. Do you plan for your appearance at RAF to be a one-off, or do you hope to continue to do this in the future? And then, kind of the second part of the question that I had is, well, can you tell me about your opponent going into next Saturday, and just kind of what challenge does he present that you're really interested in?
Those are great questions, Zan. Yeah, we've always wanted to wrestle in late into our life, so this gives me that opportunity to do so again. So yeah, RAF 03 is just a kickoff for us. Hopefully, we're going to be having many more matches in the future as they are scheduling them. There's one RAF 04 is going to be in Indiana. I believe that's December 19th or December 20th.
December 20th. Yep.
20th. Yep. So
Mhm.
there's definitely more matches ahead. Not sure which ones we're going to fit in at, but we will definitely be on the mat more than just our FO3. But getting to our opponent, Caden Henschel, the YouTube sensation. Looks like just a great young man, very well spoken, very professional. He's helped bring the sport of wrestling to the forefront. Um, I'm excited to get out there and mix it up with him. He looked good against Muggsy in his debut RAFO2 at Penn State. Definitely a difference in sizes. So we're going to be doing a catch weight for now. I'm excited to get out there and put on a show. We're going to have an Illinois versus Wisconsin rivalry. He wrestled at Wisconsin Parkside. I wrestled at Harper Junior College. We used to go to Parkside for the tournament they have every December. And man, now we get to we get to clash heads on the big mat. So I'm excited to take on Caden. It's going to be a lot of fun for the local crowd too. I'm sure he's going to bring a ton of people down from just over the border in Kenosha. And we're gonna have a ton of fans, and the Guida Mafia will be in the house in Chicago.
Yeah, and it's obviously as I'm sure you've gotten a chance to take a look at the lineup. You're part of a really stacked RAF, and so you're excited. I mean, it's obviously well warranted, and I think it's really cool. It's because I don't think I've gotten this on the record from you yet. Just given everything that you were able to accomplish in the UFC as one of the biggest fan favorites over the course of a 15-year period or so. Well, what would you say is your single greatest UFC memory? And if you don't have one, you can name multiple. Well, but
Yeah, right.
this is something that I've always been curious about.
Cool. Man, it's funny you say 15-year career, but it was 19 years we were in the UFC. We made our debut in '06, and we fought until
That's
2025,
right. It was October of '06. Yeah.
October 14th, man. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been so many highlights in our career. It's hard to pick just one. But obviously, the UFC debut it's always going to be right up there because you see the pinnacle of the sport, it is being a UFC champion, so you have to get to the UFC first, in order to be able to achieve that goal. And we had a pretty good career outside of the UFC beforehand.
Yes,
I think,
you sure did.
yeah, I think we had almost 25 fights before I got into UFC. And
Mm-hmm.
as you've seen now, the landscape has changed. Guys can, work their way into the UFC through different avenues, more recognition on social media and marketing, things like that, with maybe a handful of fights. I've seen guys get in there, with 3, 4 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, we had a world title at Strike Force before we got into the UFC. We had many other local regional belts. But yeah, winning that UFC debut with my family there, Gilbert Grappling, Midwest Training Center, all those people that helped me, get that far was very, very memorable, to win. And we were victorious in our UFC debut. We won submission of the night over a jiu-jitsu practitioner. We got the submission of the night bonus. We got a cool, not medallion. We got a cool custom carved trophy from Tap Out. This big glass trophy was huge. That's in a suitcase at my house. That's on display. So just little things like that really make it worthwhile. That was one of our highlights. Um, a lot of the other highlights were, man, probably times I didn't get my hand raised when you look at fights. The Roger Huerta fight, it was our first fight of the year. I thought we did really, really well. Our striking came out, and we beat you know a guy that was, a very good striker, Roger Huerta, very good on the ground as well, but we beat him on the feet. We overwhelmed him. I got clipped at the end of the fight. Unfortunately, didn't get our hand raised, but that was a cool fight. Another one of my favorite, most fun fights is when I fought Tyson Griffin in Belfast, Ireland in '08, maybe '07.
I think it was '07 because it was UFC 72, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, another
Hmm.
one. That was an all-around mixed martial arts display. We did everything. We did stuff I've never even done before in the gym, I don't think. You know what I mean? As far as, techniques. I had him in a knee bar at one time. He got out of, I jumped on his back or he jumped on my back. I can't even remember. No, yeah, I was on
Whole
his
thing.
back up in the air and he slammed me on my head.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but yeah,
Yep.
I'm on the feet, on the ground, wrestling, jujitsu, kicks, you name it. That was a fun one. We saved that card because that wasn't the most exciting card, on fight, displayed. But the crowd was going nuts for our fight, which was awesome. Everybody remembers the Diego Sanchez fight. That's the one that got us into
Oh
the Hall
yeah.
of Fame. So
Oh yeah.
that's the one that really put us on the map, and will give us a footprint in mixed martial arts and the UFC forever.
What was the call like when you got the notification that the UFC was inviting you into their Hall of Fame fight wing? I'm sure that it had to be a very emotional moment for you. Now,
Yeah, Dana White called me unexpectedly, and he said, "Congratulations." I was like, "For what?" Because I had already had a fight coming up scheduled against the great one, BJ Penn. So I was in training camp, and he goes, "Congrats." I'm like, "For what?" He's like, "You're getting inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2019." And I was just, yeah, I was, just blindsided. And yeah, it was a very, very special moment to be able to call your parents and your brother and your coaches and let them know that. And it's a milestone. It's a it's an achievement of a lifetime. So it was very special. And then they made the announcement back home in Chicago at a huge card to have people there for that moment was made it even more special. So, yeah,
I
those
was
are just
there. I remember it.
yep, you were there. Yep. So those
Yeah.
were just a small handful of the amazing memories we've had in the octagon, in the UFC, in our career, and yeah, the list goes on and on, man. But just super grateful for the opportunity that my parents, that the UFC, that my brother, our coaches, our teammates, have created that. Because obviously, everyone knows that's not something one man can obtain by themselves.
No, so you would say, just kind of given everything you laid out to me, you would say that you have no regrets and you're really happy with your career and the way everything played out?
Absolutely, man. I don't believe in regrets. If you regret it, maybe you should have changed something before it happened. So, um, yeah, I'm very, very, um, you know, thrilled with, what we've done in our career. You know what I always say to myself too, because I'm honest with myself. We could always do more. So that's why I'm glad we get to strap on the wrestling shoes here again and continue to, compete as a professional athlete and man, just as a wrestler, which is what got us into it.
For sure. And just to kind of wrap things up here with the final few, I'm just curious. That said, what about wrestling just gets you overall really, really excited to compete? Because there's got to be an adrenaline rush that you haven't felt in quite some time that I'm sure is more than likely going to hit by the time it happens when you get in there. So just kind of what about it, just like you returning and everything, what it gets you the most excited to compete?
Man, what gets me the most excited to compete is being able to do my very first love, wrestling. People know, I've been around the sport for so long. I helped coach when I wasn't competing in the UFC. I helped coach in the high school, in Illinois high schools for over a dozen years. Started coaching with Israel Martinez back in 2009 or 2010 um, at Montini Catholic, and now I get to continue that and just go around do keynote speaking, get to go do seminars. I get to do wrestling clinics all over the land, which that brings me joy to be able to teach kids the ever growing sport that's growing so quickly now with women's wrestling is growing so fast, men's wrestling is is growing quicker because now there's organizations like RAF that are really going to help bring wrestling to the forefront. So Man, I'm pumped just to get back out there, lace those shoes up, put that singlet on, and put a great show on for Chicago and for the wrestling world on Fox Nation.
That's outstanding. And do you have more wrestling keynote speeches or clinics coming up, or are you taking a little bit of a break as you go through this this next, I guess, RAF transition, if you will?
Oh man, you know what? I got to do one just a couple weeks ago, back home in Florida with the other great one, Mean Gene Mills, one of the greatest American wrestlers of all time. So he came down and blessed us with his presence in Cape Coral, Florida. We put on um, a clinic at the local high school, Mariner High School, where Clay French, who is from Mattoon, Illinois, was a very, very high level wrestler there, a state placer. Also wrestled at Eastern Illinois, so he runs the team down there. So it was cool to have Mean Gene down there for a clinic. Then we got to do some work with him, on the side leading up to RAF. He's a freestyle master. Oh, I got the opportunity to go up by him near Syracuse, New York, and do a clinic, an MMA wrestling clinic at his gym. So nothing scheduled right now, but yeah, you guys can always check out our social media and things like that, and we'll keep you guys up to date on what's coming.
Yeah, and speaking of social media, I'm going to give you the word for the final question. Anything you'd like to plug social media wise, either RAF related, either outing related, signing related, anything you'd like to plug, I'll let you have the floor for the final question. So
Thank you, Zan. First and foremost, man, everybody back home, thank you so much to Zan Bando and Bando's Breakdown, his family. Matt, everyone's been so nice since I met them years ago at MMA Stop. So we're very thankful for this opportunity to be on your show.
I
And
appreciate
then,
you. Thank you.
yep,
That means
yep. And
that
then,
means a lot to me. Thank you.
thank you, buddy. And then everyone knows, man. And if you don't, we're coming back on the mats November 29th in Chicago at the Wintrust Arena, where the DePaul Blue Demons basketball team plays in the South Loop, right there by McCormick Place. The card is awesome from top to bottom. We get to see our boys, Chad Mendes, Michael Chandler, two MMA legends, two wrestling animals, Division I All-Americans, NCAA finalists go at it as the headliner. We get to see Kennedy Blades, silver medalist in the Olympics,
Oh
take
yeah.
on her opponent. Yep, we get to see our little bro, Real Woods, take on two-time NCAA champ, Jordan Oliver. We get to see Spencer Lee. We get to see the clash of the Austins. Austin O'Connor from St. Rita is a couple times state champ, I believe. I'm sorry, he's a four-timer and
Yep.
NCAA national champ. And then we get to see and the other Austin Gomez, and stud from Glenbard North. So they wrestled in high school, so we get to see the rematch of those guys. Man, the list goes on. The card is stacked from top to bottom. So check it out. Get your tickets on Fox Nation. I'm sorry, get your tickets on Ticketmaster. You can watch it, stream it on Fox Nation. Also, for all you people in the fishing world, check us out at GRAP Baits and Gills and Throws with Guida. Yeah, we love to fish all around. You guys ever want to get on the water, catch the fish of a lifetime, hang out with some of your favorite fighters, maybe meet some of your favorite musicians. We'll take you guys on a trip you'll remember forever. And check out grapbaits.com to get all your fishing lures. And man, hopefully we'll see you guys on the mats and on the water soon.
Great stuff, Clay. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in about a week and a half. Safe travels as you're getting back home, and I'll talk to you soon, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Zan. Take care, guys. Come for the gills. Stay for the thrills.
Thank you so much to Clay Guida and Chad Mendes for taking the time to speak with me again. That was Bando's Breakdowns exclusive with Clay Guida and Chad Mendes, presented by Playback. You can catch those guys on Fox Nation November 29th, Wintrust Arena in Chicago. Should be an awesome, awesome event. I'm very much looking forward to catching it and telling you guys how it all went and giving you guys some coverage that you won't be able to find anywhere else with me present at the event as well. So that's going to do it for another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. Though, again, this has been episode 68. This was a really fun show. Really glad we got to do this. Just a few quick reminders before we get out of here. Listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback. And of course, just as a quick reminder as well, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe, youtube.com/EDB Network, to find out more about this show and every other show that we have coming out across the network ecosystem. We are very busy at this point in the season, but overall, it's been a really fun time. So thank you so much for tuning in. I greatly, greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. For everybody at the network, though, my name is Zain Bando. Again, this has been another edition of Bando's Breakdowns, and this was episode 68. I will see you guys in the month of December to round out the fall schedule of shows. But until then, have a good one. Have a great weekend. Taylor fade my predictions, and we will see you guys soon. Cheers.